While positioning layers in 3D space can be fun and exciting, it's a lot more interesting when you actually start creating true 3D geometry. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. And what makes that possible is the Cinema 4D renderer. Go to the timeline and select layer 1. And if you look on the right side in the switches panel, you'll notice 3D has been enabled. Go ahead and press P, open position, and notice it's moved 90 pixels closer to us on the Z axis. Now if you collapse layer 1 and open up its options, we have transform options. If we collapse the transform options, we have material options. We don't have any geometry options. So let's click on the words change renderer. That will open the composition settings to the 3D renderer tab. If you click on the drop down, you could choose Cinema 4D. Go ahead and do that. And then click OK to set Cinema 4D as the renderer. Now, we have full access to our geometry options. Go ahead and open the geometry options. And since this was an Illustrator layer, I have an option for curvature. Click on that percentage parameter and drag it to the right. Let go, and you notice it's created a curve to the layer. If you increase the number of segments, it will smooth out that curve. In order to more clearly see this, select layer 1 and press R to open the rotation orientation settings. And scrub on the Y rotation parameter. And here you can see the layer is bent in a curve. Go ahead and press Ctrl Z a few times until you get back to the original flat layer. Let's convert this so we can extrude true 3D data. With layer 1 selected, go up to the layer menu, choose create shapes from vector layer. That will give me a shape layer. And while we're at it, let's do the same for layer 3. Select layer 3. And instead of going up to the layer menu, just right click or control click on the layer and choose the same option. Create shapes from the vector layer. Move the newly created shape layer up underneath layer 1 so they are both together. With layer 2 selected, hold down Shift and click on layer 1. So both layers are selected, and press AA very quickly to open the geometry options. And the material settings. I will scroll up in my timeline so I can get to my geometry options. Since both layers are selected, when I make this change, they will both change. So set an extrusion depth of 40 and press enter on your keyboard. That has created depth to our object, but we can't really see it yet. So press R to open rotation orientation settings and click and drag on the Y rotation. I will drag it to around 29 plus. That's giving me a good view of my 3D object. But I really can't see it until I add a light into the scene. So go up under the layer menu, choose New, Light, for the light, I just move the light setting out of the way here. Click on the light type, drop down. Let's choose a point light. Set an intensity to 100%. We can leave the fall off and cast shadow setting selected. And then click OK. Now, with the light in the scene, you can see I actually have true 3D geometry. Press P to open up the light settings. Scrub on the Z axis. Move the light either further away or closer to the geometry. Now, whenever you're working in the Cinema 4D renderer, there's one thing to really pay attention to, and that's the final render settings. So go to the upper right corner of the composition panel, click on the wrench icon. Here, under the Cinema 4D renderer options, mine was set just to the right of typical. Yours could be set down as at draft. I typically work at draft settings as I'm creating animation. And then just before I go to the render out of my composition, I change this up and to just about the middle section here until I see the anti-aliasing switch to best. Then I click OK. So there are a lot more settings you could go through with the material options of a Cinema 4D layer. but you understand the basics of creating 3D geometry in Cinema 4D. Illustrator layers can be converted to shape layers. And shape layers can have true, and any text layers can also have true 3D created out of there as well.